Incoming!
Move it or lose it!
Stop, villages! You think I'm scared of you?
Tower 1 is under fire!
Whoa!
Tower 1 is being attacked! Tower 1 is under fire! Let him have it, Crypto!
Look out! Drop your weapon! I want it.
Tower 1 is under fire! Let him have it, Crypto! Tower 1 is almost destroyed! And to think I counted on you! Tower 1 is being attacked!
I put it down?
Yeah.
I ain't put that down.
You feel?
You put it down.
Villages! You think...
I got money on that.
You're go-
Incoming from the north!
Call the neighborhood watch!
SMCBS will bring you further news as it unfolds. Good day, John and Jane America. From north to south, from sea to shining sea. This is Bert with
Tower 1 is under fire! Let him have it, Crypto!
For years, America has been a beacon of hope to the world. But today comes disturbing proof. Our very way of life is under attack. Our great nation devoured from within by a malignant tumor of corruption. Yes, you heard it here first. The very heart of power in the United States of America is now cancerous. It's benevolent.
Tower 1 is under fire!
The insidious nature of this cancer. Right after a word from our sponsor.
Tower 1 is half destroyed! I told you to defend them!
The country like a fever. Police flout civil liberties. Arrest innocent people without cause.
Tower 1 is being attacked!
Engage in criminal and unconstitutional behavior. I have here a secret affidavit signed by the chief of the San Ernesto Police Department attesting not only to the existence of these abuses, but to their orchestration by an agency of our own federal government. Never happened here in the land of liberty. What happened here has more to come.
Tower 1 is under fire! Let him have it, Crypto! Tower 1 is being attacked! Your moment has arrived, Crypto! Tower 1 is being attacked! Your moment has arrived, Crypto!
annoying me. It's like something just snapping in your head. Drilling my brain.
Incoming from the north!
You think I'm other shit. Something ain't right. You need some different weapons or something.
Oh, it's an upgrade.
Did you want a saucer upgrade? Or something a little more personal?
Upgrade, nigga. Only got $700. These dollars.
Need something better than that.
Said that's gonna make their ass go away. They want to wheel it down. You down. Sorry, man. To switch to what?
I had drew that thing before with the dude pointing at you like that. Yep, drew it in my art class. Got an A+. They hung it on in front of the school on the what's the name? Burial thing. They hung it up on the school.
The success of the broadcast depends on you, Crypto. You must protect those towering transmission towers! Each tower has a transmitter at its base. If the army want to stop the broadcast, they'll have to take out those transmitters first.
Regiments 2 and 4, form up at the main junction. 1 and 3, take the flank. Attack waves, target the infrastructure. I want those comm towers out of commission. Support waves, your task is simple. Destroy the communist insurgents holding the television station. No beet-eating, vodka-swilling, Trotskyite son of a bitch is gonna hijack this great nation's God-given airways. Not on my watch. Charge!
incoming from the north!
SMCBS will bring you further news as it unfolds. Good day, John and Jane America, from north to south, from sea to shining sea. This is Bert Wither, coming to you live from a secure
Tower 2 is being attacked!
undisclosed location in America's sunshine capital, Santa Modesto, with a special news bulletin. For years, America has been a beacon of hope to the world, but today comes disturbing proof. Our very way of life is under attack. Our great nation devoured from within by a malignant tumor of corruption. Yes, you heard it here first. The very heart of power in the United States of America is now cancerous.
Tower 1 is under fire! Let him have it, Crypto!
The insidious nature of this cancer, right after a word from our sponsor.
Tower 1 is under fire! Let him have it, Crypto!
Unease sweeps the country like a fever. Police flout civil liberties, arrest innocent people without cause, even brazenly engage in criminal and unconstitutional behavior. I have here a secret affidavit signed by the chief of the Santa Modesto Police Department, attesting not only to the existence of these abuses, but to their orchestration by an agency of their own federal government. Up to now, many Americans believed such a thing could never happen here in the land of liberty, but happen it has. More to come after these commercial messages.
Move over! I'm getting flashbacks to... No! Sir, this soldier wishes to inform you that he is about to hurl, sir! You're going to want to fly and join the freaking Air Force! Destroy entire Korean villages! Drop your weapon! I'm scared of you! You're going down! You're blocking my shot all the goddamn way!
Tower 1 is under fire! Let him have it, Crypto!
Here's Johnny! Get out of the way! Screw you!
Tower 2 is under fire! Come on, Crypto! Do that voodoo that you do so well!
You're dead! You're pissed! You think you can... Stop! You wanna freeze! You're going... Drop your... On your knees, cowboy.
Oh, you won. That was very random.
Tanks! Roll in the tanks! Show them some American steel!
A federal agency behind the new terror in our streets. The terror of cops gone bad. But if policy is corrupt, what are the government responsible? SMCBS has acquired extensive documentary footage. Shadowy federal agents in reasonably priced black suits in Rockwell, Santa Modesto, even Capital City. Shown here abducting innocent citizens in unmarked black sedans. No arrest records exist. Yet to date, over 1,100 people have disappeared, their families kept in the dark, and still the U.S. government remains silent, refuses to acknowledge these abductions ever took place. Why has our government deserted us? Stay tuned. My fellow citizens, we must face the terrible truth. The powers that be in this nation no longer lead us.
I love my country. I love it.
How the hell I'm gonna do that?
There gotta be better weapons.
A federal agency behind the new terror on our streets. The terror of cops gone bad. But if policy is corrupt, what of the government responsible? SMCBS has acquired extensive documentary footage. Shadowy federal agents in reasonably priced black suits in Rockwell.
Tower 2 is under fire. Come on, Crypto. Do that voodoo that you do so well.
Arrest records exist. Yet to date, over 1,100 people have disappeared. Their families kept in the dark. And still, the U.S. government remains
Tower 2 is under fire.
these abductions ever took place. Why has our government deserted us? Stay tuned.
Freeze! Stop!
My fellow citizens, we must face the terrible truth. The powers that be in this nation no longer lead us, but oppress us. Under guise of national security from a communist threat or a conspiracy of silent abductions, one thing is certain. President Huffman must answer. But will he? Even as I speak, our mighty military strives to stop this broadcast, only to the brave efforts of our SMCBS. Still, have they been held off this long? The truth is damning, and because it's finally out, the president, for the first time in our history, has marshaled American armed forces against the American people. We are no longer safe. Or are we? The shocking final answer next.
Permission to self-extinguish! Freeze! Move it or lose it!
You're on the track that time, man.
Yep.
He's on the ass that time.
A federal agency behind the new terror on our streets. The terror of cops gone bad. But if policy is corrupt, what are the government responsible? SMCBS has acquired extensive documentary footage. Shadowy federal agents in reasonably priced black suits in Rockwell, Santa Monica, even Capital City, shown here abducting innocent citizens in unmarked black sedans. No arrest records exist. Yet to date, over 1,100 people have disappeared. Their families kept in the dark, and still the U.S. government remains.
I can take it.
Too close. I'm just shooting.
A federal agency behind the new terror on our streets. The terror of cops gone bad. But if policy is corrupt, what are the government responsible? SMCBS has acquired extensive documentary footage. Shadowy federal agents in reasonably priced black suits in Rockwell, Santa Monica, even Capital City, shown here abducting innocent citizens in unmarked black sedans. No arrest records exist. Yet to date, over 1,100 people have disappeared. Their families kept in the dark, and still the U.S. government remains silent, refuses to acknowledge these abductions ever took place. Why has our government deserted us? Stay tuned.
They didn't cover auto-combustion in basic!
My fellow citizens, we must face the terrible truth. The powers that be in this nation no longer lead us, but oppress us. Under guise of national security from a communist threat or a conspiracy of silent abductions, one thing is certain. President Huffman must answer. But will he? Even as I speak, our mighty military strives to stop this broadcast, only to the brave efforts of our SMCBS.
You're blocking my
Staff,
feed!
have they been held off this long? The truth is damning, and because it's finally out, the president, for the first time in our history, has marshaled American armed forces against the American people. We are no longer safe. Or are we? The shocking final answer next.
Tower 2 is being attacked.
Freeze! Show me what you
Tower 2 is under fire. Come on, Crypto. Do that voodoo that you do so well.
Armquist is my hero.
Get out of the way or I'll shoot through you. You're blocking my shot.
Tower 1 is under fire. Let him have it, Crypto.
Lord, don't move, please.
Move it or lose it.
If you want to come with it now. Uh-oh. Lobo. That one was bad?
Take out those towers now! All units, attack! Attack! Attack!
That's what they had back then if everyone
We have only a few moments until the army destroys our building. They're deploying tanks and, good lord, giant robots! We cannot survive for long. But in these moments, I want to share a new hope. SMCBS. Correspondence.
Tower 2 is half destroyed. What part of defend the towers don't you understand? Tower 2 is almost destroyed. Oh, this is terrible.
do all that.
We have only a few moments until the army destroys our building. They're deploying tanks and, good lord, giant robots! We cannot survive.
Tower 1 is being
In
attacked.
these moments, I want to share a new hope. SMCBS.
Tower 1 is half destroyed. I told you to defend them.
Befriend all humans. Tragically, these gentle, intelligent creatures are being systematically exterminated by government agencies. Are these interstellar ambassadors our last hope for a peaceful human future?
Real quick.
I know the other one was
Oh, flew on the bottom.
We have only a few moments until the army destroys our building. They're deploying tanks and, good lord, giant robots!
Tower 1 is under fire.
But in these moments, I want to share a new hope. SMCBS.
Tower 1 is under fire.
Incredible! For the first time in history, proof that an alien race has visited Earth and apparently repeated it.
Tower 2 is being attacked.
And all humans. Tragically, these gentle, intelligent people.
Making names of it. They throw.
Who the what?
That they throw, pick it up and throw it back. And they know that.
Let the military people go?
We have only a few moments until the army destroys our building. They're deploying tanks and, good lord, giant robots! We cannot survive.
Tower 1 is being attacked. Your moment has arrived, Crypto.
Correspondence.
Tower 1 is almost destroyed. And the
Yeah, just tear my shit down.
Right, I wasn't doing it. Oh, straight forward.
Mm-mm.
We have only a few moments until the army destroys our building. They're deploying tanks and, good lord, giant robots! We cannot survive.
Tower 1 is being attacked. Your moment has arrived, Crypto.
Correspondents have uncovered something incredible.
Tower 1.
We have only a few moments until the army destroys our building. They're deploying tanks and, good lord, giant robots!
Tower 1 is under fire. Let them have it, Crypto.
Someone to share a new hope. SMCBS.
Tower 2 is being attacked.
Something incredible. For the first time in history, proof that an alien race has
Tower 2 is being attacked.
apparently repeated attempts to communicate their message, befriend all humans. Tragically, these gentle, intelligent creatures are being systematically exterminated by government agencies. Are these interstellar ambassadors our last hope for a peaceful human future? Could they help us take back America? May Providence smile upon us all. This is Bert Wither saying goodbye.
You're blocking my shot. Stop! Brass always bust my chops.
Tower 1 is under fire.
We need some shit. What you got, man? What you got going on? Well, me for taking down. Covering it up. Cover up. Call me the monkey.
People those bodies things up. Some of these those bodies animal.
Pest control.
Child monkey. And left to rot in the silent sunny street. That's someone does that. Still feels the icy grip of clay. Suburbia nights. Was shocked to hear the dangerous animal had escaped from the happy time fun factory in Lucky Cookie Company outside of town. Lucky Cookie Company. Resident James Blake is on hand to describe what he saw. Oh golly, what a stink. I got home from the office and thought my wife had burned the roast again. I looked over my fence and saw the monkey being taken away. But a lot of guys in white coats. I gotta say, I've never seen so many bakers in one place before. More eyewitnesses on page 4. Taking them wearing white coats. You think of them bakers. Lima butter beans. What's your favorite food stuff?
What's coconut? What can you coconut? No.
We have only a few moments until the army destroys our building. They're deploying tanks and, good lord, giant robots! We cannot survive for long. But in these moments, I want to share a new hope. SMCBS correspondents have uncovered something incredible. For the first time in history, proof that an alien race has visited Earth and apparently repeated attempts to communicate their message, befriend all humans. Tragically, these gentle, intelligent creatures are being systematically exterminated by government agencies. Are these interstellar ambassadors our last hope for a peaceful human future? Could they help us take back America? May Providence smile upon us all. This is Bert Wither saying, "Oh!"
Where's my alien story?
We have only a few moments until the army destroys.
Let the muddled masses manage their money using their pre-Mesozoic means. I pay them no mind. I am my own maestro of money management. My money maneuvers at my mandate.
Some of the intelligence that I've had contact with, we had conversations that I will carry those conversations to the grave with me. With that being said, if you would
Destroys our building. They're deploying tanks and, good lord, giant robots! We cannot survive for long. But in these moments, I want to share a new hope. SMCBS correspondents have uncovered something incredible. For the first time in history, proof that an alien race has...
Tower 1 is under fire! Let him have it, Crypto!
Befriend all humans. Tragically, these gentle, intelligent creatures are being
exist today, from the time of the Big Bang to present.
We have only a few moments until the army destroys our building. They're deploying tanks and, good lord, giant robots! We cannot survive for long. But in these moments, I want to share a new hope for SMCBS. Correspondents have uncovered something incredible. For the first time in history, proof that an alien race has visited Earth and apparently repeated attempts to communicate their message that friend all humans. Tragically, these gentle, intelligent creatures are being systematically exterminated by government agencies. Are these interstellar ambassadors our last hope for a peaceful human future? Could they help us take back America? May Providence smile upon us all. This is Bud Weather saying goodbye.
Glorious day. Nothing to fear.
Sir, the private regrets to inform you that he is on fire, sir.
Handle the
Permission to self-extinguish.
We're gonna have people who don't believe anything else there is. Except, okay, there may be life out there. But with that life being out there,
Tower 2 is being attacked.
the same as out there. Say there's life out there. There's been nothing else since the dawn of the end. That's entirely different.
They have even seeded us, created us, as Zechariah Sitchin, the late
Tower 2
Zechariah
is being
Sitchin.
attacked. Hit them back and hit them hard.
Did they create us?
Tower 2 is under fire. Come on, Crypto. Do that voodoo that you do so well.
Screw you!
Tower 1 is under fire. Tower 1 is being attacked. Your moment has arrived, Crypto. Ah, you scattered them like roaches. Marvelous.
God loves multiverse. What is God? Who is God? I don't know how to tell you. Like, does God exist? My personal opinion, yes, he does. Our visitors, do they believe he exists? Yes, they do. And someday we're going to realize that.
Thank you. These are my times. Actually, she's saying, Clifford's kind of cute. He's cuter than you, George. How many retrieval cases in your military career were you sent on?
In my military career, it was approximately 12 cases that I was involved in.
Were they all crashes?
No. Some were actually landings. Sometimes we got there. The one thing that you have to understand, we were interested in their technology. We're still interested in their technology. But you had to be careful because when, just like us, you know, if there's a crash or if there's mechanical problems and they have to sit down, and remember, just like us, they're very mortal. And, you know, even if they're advanced technology, things happen. And when that happens, just like us, they send out rescue teams to recover survivors in crashes and try to recover people who are left alive that are involved in emergency landings, let's say. And every now and then, even though it sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, a craft will land, we start to move in, they realize we're moving in, they'll take off, and one or two of them will be left behind. When they say that we go ahead and hold on to them, excuse me, don't take an American and hold on to them, because the whole situation is, we're going to try to get that American back. If you take a group of Americans, then even if it requires military action, we're going to take that those Americans back. So the whole situation is that people need to think that they too have plans on how to recover their own, and also with dead ones, that they have respect for their dead. And a lot of people don't like me to say this. I honestly believe.
Step right up. Weapons, abilities, saucers, upgrades are us.
It's beyond that. But I'm going to say my personal opinion that we return the dead aliens back to to the planet, their own people, which they came during the Roswell crash. And I think ourselves by trying to destroy them. A lot of people weren't aware of it, but they think, okay, well, we get a radar lock on, then we can track. No, we can track them with radar. But if you get a radar lock on and you try to fire, say, a surface-to-air or air-to-air missile,
Which I think we've tried.
we have tried. We tried it in Vietnam. But the whole situation is that missile is going to lock on to the closest radar possible, follow it to that target, and then you have people who die of friendly fire. Good example, June 17th, 1968. They picked up approximately 23 enemy helicopters over the DMC, complete with lights, which it's stupidity if you're in that type of situation. You have the lights on your helicopters.
We should be able to discover what happened to Crypto-136. My scans have identified several radioactive areas in your vicinity, but there is one in particular that looks like it could be a crash site.
They closed in on them. The F-4s fired on the lights, the enemy helicopters.
I'm on it. Any of those baboons laid one hairy finger on me, I'll rip them a new asshole.
The Hobart, which was a Australian cruiser, we wounded six sailors on it, but we also just killed 2 officers that was on the Hobart. On June 30th, 1968, MACV, Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, held a conference. That conference was entitled Conference on Unidentified Flying Objects. The question was, what do we do about the UFO situation in Vietnam?
What have you discovered?
This is where 136 hit the dirt all right.
You found his ship?
A few little pieces, most of it's gone.
Recover any Furon technology the humans may have found, and rescue Crypto-136.
Monkeys probably hitched the ship to their donkeys and dragged it back to their mud village so they can worship it as a god.
I don't get to shoot somebody soon, I'm gonna go out of my mind. I know what you're thinking, ladies. And yes, I'm available. Damn, that drill sarge booted me out of Easy Company. Now I pulled this lame duck assignment. I knew I should have joined the Texas Air National Guard. Now that'd be some easy duty.
The end result, according to General Brown, 1973, we ignored them, and we had no more problems. Did they go away? No, they didn't. They still were watching the events that were going on in Vietnam.
I like Huffman, but I'll kill him in a second if I get the order.
Do we, Cliff, interact with extraterrestrials? I mean, there's always been this undertone that governments were in collusion with the ETs, trading back technology and everything.
Oh, do I hate marching. You suck. Stop! It's like he's invisible. You're going down! I destroyed it.
The technology
It's killer.
For them, they weren't coming back. We were being able to go there and come back. And that was the technology.
Here's Johnny. Beg me to spare your life.
Technology, we were back engineering.
I really ought to get up to Jersey and see Uncle Tony this weekend.
Are we acquired from technical development?
March here, march there, march it yourself, jerk off.
The other thing is Project Hazel. Project Hazel was
You want a piece of
we
this?
started doing research on a Mach-3 craft that could go ahead and cruise at 190,000 feet.
Don't ask.
About 80,000 feet. The SR-71 had a top cruising speed of approximately 100,000 feet. These, Project Hazel came into being in 1948. The fastest aircraft we had at that time was maybe 800. If you went to complete afterburners, maybe we could get up to 1,200. That was the F-94.
Armquist is my hero. I want to be just like Sergeant York. Or Gomer Pyle.
And that was still very earthly technology. But with this type of craft, we were getting ready to try to do something, and the crafts look very exotic. To today we're flying prototypes based on the prototypes that we were working on back in 1948. We've done that also in 59.
What kind of propulsion system did they have? Because I think they were able to travel through space and time, and then basically they could go from point A to point B by folding it over. How did they travel?
They used reversible wormholes, sir. The situation is that they start from using antimatter drive.
What's going on?
We call it proton drive. But using antimatter drive, they can say, okay, and I know this.
Where could these humans have imprisoned Crypto 136? Find out if one of these military monkeys.
An hour and 40 minutes?
Yes, sir.
I need to use that on my next trip to the east or west coast.
You're going down, little man. Let's get it. 15 rounds with me. What's going on?
And what a lot of people don't know, we always refer to antimatter, and I was, as a matter of fact, Corona helped me in a full visitor. It's been with me throughout my life.
Oh, I'm so sick of guarding that stupid shiny. I'd have a GI party with a toothbrush if I told the general.
This majestic stronghold must be where they are holding Crypto 136.
Lying discs are as real as the one crashed on this space. Just it really is covering it all up. Don't ask, don't tell thing is really working for me.
Negative matter, not the same as antimatter. But it's thousands of times more potent if you're using it.
How does that work?
I haven't a clue. And I mean, that's why we just found out about it.
Why, Cliff, at this point, we're going to take some of the questions from the audience for you. We've got Tom Van there and Cheryl, former CNN reporter back there, too. Say hi to Cheryl, by the way, folks. Great anchor person. With everything that's happening in the media today these days, Cheryl, we need you back.
Die, scumbag.
Why at this point, Clifford, are they still...
Eat your heart out, Nobel Committee. You're an ugly little snake.
More paperwork, more FPS reports. Freak in the lab creates more problems than all the other collateral damage. Those little Huron freaks can run, but they can't hide from us. I have to put them in the lab before Silhouette puts me there first. That Klaatu freak in our lab better get us the results we need.
So it's a question of how the world population is going to react to that truth. And I'm going to call it that truth. The other thing is there's a technology involved. The nation that controls that technology has a strategic advantage in any future armed conflict. And it's got to be the right conflict. Like right now, we have certain weapon systems that we have to make a decision whether we're going to use or not.
Brass always bust my chops, jackasses.
Utilizing those weapons? Yeah, we do.
I love my country. I love my flag.
I really thought you'd be alive. Ah, Crypto. Look what they've done to us. Laid us open like an animal. How could intelligent creatures do this? Okay, monkeys. You want a war? You got a war.
We took the photographs of them. We triangulated their own
What? What did you find, Crypto?
We're dead. An honorable death at the hands of an enemy in battle, that's one thing, Pox, but they desecrated us.
That camera that we used to do that, by the way, that same camera that I'm talking about took photographs of UFOs. Actual craft that existed that was in near Earth orbit that we never knew was there. Those photographs have yet to be released, and the NRO knows that they took those photographs. Now, I'm telling you all this, and people sit back, oh, he can make anything up like that. Excuse me, the documents exist. And the whole situation is people say documents are important, documents are everything, because you know what? They tell that history that has been kept from us throughout all this time, and it's made people go ahead and lose their families because they had this interaction with this phenomena that we call UFOs and our visitors that have taken their own lives, that have destroyed people, had people go ahead and had their families think they were crazy, they were mad. Well, guess what? There is a written record of a lot of this that's there. When you look at it, you see the technology involved, you got one question. Where did that technology come from? And did we back engineer a whole craft? No, sir, we didn't. Your technology has to be on par with the technology you acquire. However, if you have any technology at all, you can develop some of that technology that makes it very exotic and advanced technology just based on what you currently have. So we call it foreign exploitation technology.
It's very foreign.
Oh, yes, sir.
Are you glad this has all happened to you? If you had a choice, would you do it again?
I love my country. And if you know me, you know I put people ahead of me.
I was been reading those papers.
I can feel and sense the need of helping other people. So I'd probably let it happen to me. I wish to God it never did. I want one thing out of this life that I've never had.
What is that?
I want to live a normal life like everybody else.
Everybody.
But, you know, if I keep my mouth shut, I probably could. But I don't have that right. Once again, I have to say that I have a moral obligation to throw myself on my own sword. Knowing that many people are going to say, liar, liar. You're mentally ill, you're this, you're that. But I owe it to the people who are out there who have no place to turn to say, you know what happened to you, it's okay. And I want people to know that. And I don't want them to just take my word on it. That's why I'm fighting for the documentation. And I want people to read. And I want people to educate themselves on this. I don't want people to let anyone, including myself, live in their mind rent-free. I want people to know the facts based on the facts. And the only way they can do that is by looking at the documents that have been released. And then demand the documents that are yet to be released. We had 2 programs, and I always had to go ahead, bite my tongue and say project or operation. Moondust and Bluefly. Those were the pro words that was used.
What did you find?
We're dead. An honorable death at the hands of an enemy in battle, that's one thing, Pox, but they desecrated us. And they're gonna pay. Oh, yes, they're gonna pay.
Data that we might need, the technology that might be within those, say, of Soviet origin or something of the sort. Well, the whole situation, I always had to say, well, you know, they could possibly sell the Soviet origin. They had nothing to do with that. Moondust and Bluefly dealt specifically discovery of objects that did not originate on planet Earth. They were probe words to SCI programs, Sensitive Departmented Information programs, associated special access programs. Within special access programs, what a lot of people don't understand, you have categories. First of all, you have a by name listing to have the information made available to you in special access programs. Those by name listings normally do not exceed 100 people. Within the NRO itself,
Sir, drop the... Permission to self-extinguish Drop your weapon!
that makes it impossible for any one president by himself to make that decision.
Party's over.
The National Security Council are a group of people wanting.
You want to
What am I thinking? I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
With extraterrestrials, where we're communicating directly with them.
Yes, sir, we do. And it's necessary.
And approximately where may they be coming from?
Silent visitor.
Crypto, get out of there! Unless you want to end up like your predecessor. Return to the mothership. We'll use that data tape to...
Are you kidding me? If it's the last thing I do, I'm gonna make them pay for this.
Pay? Oh, we'll make them pay. Wait just a little longer to see just how destructive it will be.
And the whole
Break.
situation is, I know the company because those two people were called crazy too, and those two people were scared to death about what happened to them. The incident happened in 1961. They finally seek medical help. In 65, the psychologist put them under hypnosis. They went back in progression, and both of them told the same story under hypnosis. And the interesting thing I like about the Barney and Betty Hill case, once again, they were typical type 2 grays that were involved.
Right.
And the situation is, Betty wanted proof that this actually happened. One of the entities went ahead who was friendly towards them and saying, we're not going to harm you, we're not going to do anything bad. And she said, I want that book. That book, I can prove I was here. She went ahead, after pointing to the book, the ET says, it's okay. When you leave, we'll let you take that book. The one that was in charge came up and says, no, she cannot take anything. We cannot let them take anything that would indicate they were ever here. So when they left, they had no indication. All they knew, they had missing time. The other thing is, from 65 to 69, there was no way to identify what Betty was calling the star chart. They could not identify that at all. They tried. 1969, Tracy star map came out, or star guide came out. A lady by the name of Marjorie Fish went ahead and made almost an exact duplicate of what Betty went ahead and described. Now, some of the debunkers, any tens of thousands could go that way. Make me a liar. Show me one time any of the debunkers came up with something like that. They can't do it because it never happened.
It's a funny story, too, that you brought up the psychiatrist who interviewed them. Because when I was 21 years old in Detroit as a radar reporter, I interviewed him, Dr. Benjamin Simon, out of Boston. And I'm still scurrying around the houses that I've had because that tape is somewhere.
Yes, sir.
And I asked him specifically if Barney and Betty Hill, based on his interpretation as a psychiatrist, if they were telling the truth or not, or if they were lying. In his exact words, George, whatever they saw, and I don't know what they saw, but whatever They're telling the truth. And he said, I hypnotized them separate. And their stories matched to a T.
Yes, sir.
He said, take that to the bank. Again, I don't know what happened to them. I'm the psychiatrist. But whatever happened to them, they believe it to be true. I found that to be incredible.
Oh, yes, sir. And I'll tell you something else that's incredible. You remember Dr. Menzel? He's actually the granddaddy of the debunkers. I want you people to know that Dr. Menzel did everything he could to discredit anyone that thought they saw a UFO. One thing that a lot of people don't know, he was a consultant on Project Twinkle, the study of the green fireball phenomena in the southwestern part of the United States, which included New Mexico, and they were doing this out of Kirtland Air Force Base. The OSI was actually the primary office that had the responsibility for the investigation. In 1948, with him being a consultant, he went to El Paso for some reason. He was on his way back to Dr. White Sands, actually, but he was billeted there at Holloman Air Force Base. As he came back, and if you've ever been out there, you know, as you're coming back from El Paso, Texas, off to your right, there's that mountain range. He saw three objects about the size of the moon, the full moon, up there that he couldn't identify. And he made it clear he knew they were real. He knew that there was something there. But he was different. He was a scientist. He wasn't like us morons that were just everyday people going about the planet like ants. Whatever he saw was real. He didn't report it to Blue Book. And remember, Project Twinkle was never ever supposed to become part of Blue Book. Thank God that they got the final report of Project Twinkle, did not know where to send it to, and sent it to Project Blue Book. Thank God that the OSI, 17th District, did not destroy those records. Because in those records, you have the report of Menzel reporting UFOs, the sighting he had, being real, tangible objects, not hallucinatory, with no plausible explanation. And of course, he had an ego. He, if there was an answer, would know the answer because he was a scientist.
So he was a skeptic to hide something.
Oh yeah, and even after he saw the UFOs and couldn't identify it, he remained skeptical. Or did he?
Or did he? Cliff, we're going to take some questions from the audience.
Sure.
Tom and Cheryl, you've got some stuff for us?
We do. We have a lot of questions from our audience. This is on 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me, folks? Okay. So, Clifford, someone from the audience would like to know and would like you to discuss the pain of keeping the secrecy from your family, and when did you finally decide to let them know?
My wife knew. I met my wife in Vietnam. She was there when a couple times they came and got me. My kids, Dad was supposed to be home and doing things with them. And I'll tell you right now, sometimes at 3 in the morning, I'd get a tap on the door. The code word was Tabasco. And the general sends his greetings. I had to grab what we called a BA-50 bag that had all my gear packed. Clothing, I exchanged this for 3 days, and I had to leave. I didn't know where I was going. Even peacetime, okay? You didn't know if you were going to ever make it back. We were dealing with the technology. We were the kids. We were playing with firearms as children because we did not fully understand the technology. When I get back, it was understood that my kids wasn't to ask where Daddy had been. They were just go ahead and accept it that Daddy had to go TDY, temporary duty. The problem that they had friends too. And everyone was saying, oh, well, your dad's just volunteering too much because clerks don't go that much to TDY. Clerks don't go that much to the field. The whole situation is that there were 5 years straight I did not take 1 day leave. Not because I didn't want to, because I had things I had to do. the whole situation is, even if there wasn't UFO activities that I was involved with where we're doing recoveries, there were times that I'd have to talk about events and even go ahead and share my viewpoints on what UFOs were and how we stand as far as the relationship that we have with the potential of other life out there. And I finally found out why this was going on long before I even got involved. There was a document, still classified, but I'll tell you the name of it. It was called the Extraterrestrial Report. It was done up by the CIA at the time. Beadle Smith was the director, I think. And it was talking about the ongoing interrelationships that we have to have and how we had to be very careful. And their major concern that by accident, we could get involved in a thermonuclear war by mistaking UFOs of being...
And that's almost happened before, too.
I'm sorry?
These accidental launches.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's several times that we began. 1950 is a good example. We were 15 minutes from a nuclear exchange, and we were about to launch our missiles. Had it not been for them telling us to stand down, and the situation was, we found the problem, what was causing all these radar sightings. That right there was a little gear that was messing up. And that was the best they could do at the time. Too bad they couldn't think about, that's a temperature inversion. But they said the little gear, and of course everyone, wait a minute. This is happening to many different locations at the time. Next day they came out and said, well, we got to be careful because the Russians might have tried to do that because at that time we were already involved in the Korean War. But anyhow, it died down. They downplayed it. The media didn't ask questions. It went away, and they didn't have to say no more about it.
Next one, Tom.
Were you given any personal support by the Army, by the stress you were under? This is Cheryl Jones asking.
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Were you given any personal support by the Army for the stress that you were under?
Did they pay your medical bills, I guess she's asking?
No, ma'am. I came down with skin rash. You want to see me out there? I got it on my, the pictures on my phone. I went ahead and I was in great pain, and they would not do anything for me. They're like, oh, that looks bad. Oh, that looks bad. And I mean, it hurt. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't lay down. I couldn't sleep. And I went to the VA, and I had them take a look at it. Well, there's nothing we can do. Finally, one of the doctors told me, I don't know what's wrong with you. I want you to go to the emergency room. Of course, the emergency room they wanted me to go to was the VA hospital 200 miles away. My wife, on a Friday, tried to take me there. And I was in so much pain, she turned around and came back. We wound up going to Lovelace Hospital there in Roswell, New Mexico. They went ahead, looked at me, and checked and found everything. Says, well, the good news is the infection, the viral infection, hasn't attacked any internal organs yet. Had that happened, I'd have died. But the doctor says, look, all I can do is to tell you, when we release you, you take this medicine with some type of, I can't remember the name of the medicine, but they told me to take the medication, but to see a doctor as quickly as possible after I got out of there. I went ahead and I bothered the people that followed me on Facebook, and I had the video and I posted it on Facebook. What a lot of people may not know, several thousand people went ahead and sent that, or got that, saw it. They called their congressman. They called the VA headquarters in Washington. They called the White House. That was on a Friday. That following Wednesday, 8 o'clock in the morning, I got a call from the VA hospital out of Albuquerque. They were telling me, they referred to me, hey, big guy, we did not know any of this was going on. And I said, okay. He says, but we're setting you up to see a dermatologist. And I was getting ready to say, you know, I'm in too much pain to go there. And they said, no, you don't understand. we're going to have you see a doctor there in Roswell. And they set me up to see a dermatologist there. He started to treat me, and it started to get better.
What did he say it was?
Actually, it's some type of skin disorder that's associated with exposure to Agent Orange. The VA will not, refuses to this day to even recognize that I ever had any exposure to Agent Orange. And Agent Orange was used extensively throughout Vietnam. And I didn't go ahead and use my hindsight to powder a chair behind a desk. I was in the field. And the situation is Xi'an, Tainan, Cu Chi, Pleiku, all of those places. And, you know, they use that Defoilan, Agent Orange, throughout there. We were in one location right at the base of Dui Ba Dien, the Black Virgin Mountain, where they dropped Agent Orange, and we were right there, and it came down and hit us.
Lucky that stuff didn't kill you, Cliff.
It killed a lot of people.
At any point, did you think this rash might have been associated with the downed crafts that you visited, or some kind of radiation poisoning?
I really didn't know. And, you know, a lot of people suggested maybe some of the things that I have was associated with that.
You still have this?
Oh, I still got it on the back of my leg.
You do?
But it's getting better. I mean,
after all these years, you still have it?
Oh, this was only about 2 years ago.
It cropped up, you mean?
Yes.
But the exposure was years ago.
Oh, you know, if you have exposure to Agent Orange, and even if you don't have anything, you know what? Tell your children, because it's hereditary. It can be passed on to your children. And the one thing that you see me here, I got both my eyes. When the event that occurred at Dui Ba Dien, where we went into a cave, there's more to the story, but actually when the firefight took place in there, my left eye was injured. Officially on my medical record that says that there was this bug that sprayed this spray back into my eye that cut the corona of the eye. I know of no insect, and I've been looking, that can do that. But when what happened there started to happen, it was like you were inside of a light bulb. It was like you were in a glass of milk, brightly lit. You could hold your hand that close to your face, and you could not see your hand. But immediately, I remember of going ahead, having pain right in here, going down, and I thought that was the end of it, you know. I woke up. When I woke up, I'm outside. I'm there with the guys that I went in with. And the guy always called the colonel. I said, how do you guys get me out of there? He said, we didn't get you out. The question is, how did you get out? A couple seconds I wasn't there, then all of a sudden I was there. No one knows how I got there. To this day, I don't know how I got there.
Tommy?
Can you please talk about the ET craft, and if you think there is any correlation between the craft itself and the degree of the ET's intelligence?
Did it seem like there was some kind of intelligence behind it? Any kind of controls or anything?
Yeah, if I understand the question, you mean is the construction of the craft a reflection of the intelligence of our ETs?
Correct, or anything in the craft or what it was made of?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The whole situation is you went in there and you realized that there were control panels that you couldn't understand how they could be control panels. By that I mean they looked like a flat surface, but the flat surface, they had to know where to touch. You couldn't tell. I mean, there's no lights there telling you, okay, this is the start button, this right here is the speed, you know, it's nothing like that. You had built right in to the consoles or even into the walls. You had screens, but not screens like we know of screens. And the situation is the entities on board those craft knew how to use this. If there was a mechanical problem with the material, they knew how to fix it. And a lot of the times, you know, we'd be sitting back scratching our heads, not, you know, wondering, okay, how are they fixing it? The first thing we had to understand was what the heck was it So, yeah, there were many indications that showed that it was a vastly superior technology behind our intelligence, behind the technology that created the craft. And, once again, I have to state that in 1948, with Project Hazel, the craft that we were trying to develop at that time, that was technology that we acquired. That wasn't technology that we had. Some of the technology that was used in the National Reconnaissance Organization, that right there was acquired technology. It wasn't technology that we had. We went ahead and we exploited that technology to the extent that we could, based on our level of the understanding of the technology involved. Good example, you take a brand new car all the way back to, say, 1776. They have a technical capability in 1776. They're not going to be able to back engineer that 2018 car. They're going to be able to back engineer some parts of it, but not the whole car. They're going to understand that the headlights, okay, those headlights have various types of gases in a vacuum that causes it to light up, but they're not going to be able to fully understand how that headlight works. The internal combustion engine, once again, they're going to understand, okay, yeah, there's something you put in this engine that makes it go ahead and move, and these pistons go up and down, and that causes that little crank to turn, that causes the wheels to move. But they're not going to be able to back engineer that. One of the things is that fluid that goes into the vehicle that makes the engine work. We hadn't learned how to process gasoline yet, and that would be a couple of years off. Till we had that technology on how to process the gasoline, we couldn't make gasoline.
Cliff, the Roswell crash, they saw near the controls some kind of impressions for like 3 fingers, that they would put 3 fingers in and be able to control the craft like that. Did any of these that you witnessed have anything like that?
Nothing that I witnessed was anything like that, but at the same time, I'd be very careful to advise people that what my experiences are based on the experiences that I had. There were other people who had experiences that may totally be 180 degrees different than from what I had. No two people had the same experience, and if you've ever been in combat, I'll tell you right now, you can have 2 people involved in the same battle, okay? And within that battle, they could be side by side, observing the same thing. At the end of the battle, you're going to get 2 diametrically different stories. One person may remember everything about it. The other one is just going to have bits and pieces. And actually, even with abductions, that's the way it works too.
Cheryl, you have a question for us?
Yes, thank you. Clifford, many people believe the government knows that UFOs and ETs are real. What do you view personally as the most important proof of that?
I think the most important proof, once again, is the documents. And why do I state that? Just recently, the CIA released documentation that shows that major events took place in 1952. The primary major events that took place was the overflights of Washington, D.C. on the night of the 19th and 20th of July and the 26th and 27th of July. Those events went ahead and caused great interest in what was going on with UFOs, period, for a number of years now, but specifically in 52, over 1,500 sightings were reported, of which 150 remained unknowns. But that started the IAC, the Intelligence Advisory Committee, to start questioning about UFOs being real and being a threat. And what do we really need to do? That little unit in Ohio at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, consisting of maybe 5 people, wasn't hacking it. So they wanted to do something. Well, the decision was made that now was the time to go and brief the National Security Council and have the National Security Council issue an intelligence directive. During the course of the conversation, the CIA wanted to quiet what was going on. They did not want there to be a major investigation by all the intelligence community of UFOs. So they fought hard to try to keep that. There's only one way to stop it from happening. And history would repeat itself back in the 60s, or ahead in 66. At that time, they decided to have a group of scientists to talk about UFOs and try to determine what was going on. It was known as the Robinson Panel. They met between June the 14th and the June 17th. Even though they had military personnel, high-ranking military personnel, go to them and tell them, look, some UFOs are interplanetary. They, well, we just can't buy that. We have no physical evidence. They were denied the physical evidence. The FBI, being a member of the IAC, the Intelligence Advisory Committee, one of the agents that was involved with that committee did a memo for J. Edgar Hoover. It was October 26, 1952, I think, the date of the memo, telling J. Edgar Hoover that many people in the Pentagon, many high-ranking officials, even though the official word was that there was nothing to UFOs, many high-ranking officials believed that UFOs existed and they were of extraterrestrial origin. J. Edgar Hoover was very upset with the CIA and accused them of holding information back. And how do we know this? Well, November and December of 2016, the CIA very quietly released documentation dealing with what I'm talking to you about right now. Then in January of 2017, they released more information. Kress reviewed them to decide that they could go ahead and make portable records, PDF files if you wish. They became part of the general records of the CIA, which means they are among more than 17 million documents that have been declassified and not actually put into any specific files, like the 2 files the CIA has on UFOs. Prior to the release of those documents, it was very difficult to read the minutes of the meeting of June 14th, or of January 14th and January 17th, known as the Robinson Panel. Now we have crystal clear documents, and boy, do they show a lot of things we didn't know until they were released.
Are some of them blacked out, Cliff?
Actually, these are very good documents, not mostly blacked out. Names are blacked out because, see, we can't have you going and asking the people who really knew, well, tell us about it. Now, the reason for that is because of Saarbacher. He was what they called a dollar a year man. He didn't work with the UFO program, but he worked with people who were involved with recoveries, even the Roswell crash. And of course, when he was asked, what do you think about him? He came back, oh, I know people who went ahead and worked with recovery. They said some of the aliens that they recovered, some of the alien bodies were very similar to insect life, like here on this planet Earth.
Praying mantis types.
Right? Similar to that. And also, he made mention of the metallic suits they had on. So the whole situation is, he didn't feel he was breaking any laws. He felt that, no one told him he couldn't talk. And actually, they think that if you're going to talk, if you've ever been exposed to this and you talk about it, you're a darn fool. Because you know what? You pay a price. You want to talk? Be prepared to pay a price. That's why a lot of people haven't.
Let's take a couple more times and we'll wrap up.
Clifford, what key message do you have for us from your dealings with the ETs, and what would you say to the children of today who are our future about the ET intelligence?
We have nothing to fear from UFOs. We need to learn more. And once we learn more, It may go ahead and make us understandable how close we are and how much we have in common with, you know, the various groups of people, the Russians, the U.S., the Chinese, the commonalities that we have. We are not different races, different people. We're one race, the human race. And the situation, we have nothing to fear from UFOs. The day that UFOs are exposed as being the day that we can go ahead and have interactions with them on individual basis like you and I, it's going to be a wonderful day. It's going to open a whole new world to all of us. Not for the bad, but for the betterment of all humanity. And it will lead to a much, much, much brighter future. It will lead to a better tomorrow.
What an exciting time that would be, Cliff.
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Cheryl?
Clifford, how did the Army know that you were capable to work in crash retrieval? How do you think they figured that out?
I have no idea, ma'am. I wish I knew.
So somebody knew something about you?
Yes, sir. I think it goes back to my childhood. I think that the military wanted me to go into the Air Force. I wanted to go in the Air Force. My brother is in the Air Force. But I was medically rejected. That happened at Fort Hays, Columbus, Ohio. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to go in the military. When I went back home after I graduated from Tays Valley High School, I went back home to Portsmouth, Ohio. Within a week or so, I got a notification from my draft board saying, greetings and salutations from your friends and neighbors. We want you to come and be reevaluated. I went. I passed my written test with flying colors, but I still had that medical problem. We had a doctor, this guy was a colonel too, that was visiting from Walter Reed Hospital there at the AFI station there at Ashland, Kentucky, that I went for my reevaluation. Then he went in, would you like to really get in? Are you serious? I said, yes, I would really like to get in. He says, okay, I'll get you in, but you have 179 days to decide whether you want to get out. I said, if I get in, I'll stay. I'm not going to get out. And I went ahead and I stayed. They started to groom me. I thought it was just normal. I thought they treated all GIs badly when they first go in. But they made a special effort on my part. So I wound up staying in, and when they gave me the choice after many things had happened to me, if I wanted to become part of the program and re-enlist for 3 years, and I said, I'd like to think about it, because, you know, my mama didn't raise no fools. I didn't want to have my life changed with all that was going on. So I went ahead and I said, well, let me think about it. I said, okay, we'll give you a Monday. Oh, by the way, if you choose not to do this, you got to know that the event that led up to this, I was detained and underwent what we call intensified interrogation. They said, if you don't do this, and we're going to have to court-martial you. I said, what? We're going to have to court-martial you.
So you didn't have much of a choice?
No, sir. Well, supposedly I enlisted in the Air Force, what I wanted to enlist into to begin with.
How many members were in this unit, this retrieval type
Well,
unit?
the NBC team consisted of anywhere between 20 to 30 people. And normally you'd have a team that arrived within 2 hours of an event, followed by a B team that would arrive within 4 hours of the event to back up the A team. How many people were privy to the fact that this was a UFO event? That is much fewer. Give you an example. When I got out of the military at that time only had 7 other what we called interfacers. That led to the military trying to block me from getting out of the military. They tried to block my retirement. But fortunately they didn't call my bluff. I made it clear I'd go and talk and show where I had my retirement orders. They revoked them, and they were holding me to determine whether I was supposed to be getting retired or not. And I pointed out that, you know, us clerks are a dime a dozen, so you better be prepared. And I'm going to tell them you're holding me because I am needed to investigate UFOs. And I actually talked to any survivors. And they went ahead, and I remember to this day what I told them. They went ahead and said, well, we're going to have to see how we're going to handle this. I said, fine. If you don't like it, sue me. Well, I haven't gotten sued yet. They went ahead and let me out, but I have had times when they came to talk to me. And I have had times where they have actually came back and tried to tell me, you know what, your life would be a whole lot easier if you'd just stop talking. You know, I agree with that. And this may be my last appearance here. Anyone who thinks it's about money, please come to visit me in my home. Forgive
and
me.
bring $10 with you, please.
Door's always open. I've never known a stranger to visit me. And the whole situation is, I've even had people who were debunkers, people who were non-believers. I even had Phil Klass visit me.
The skeptic of all skeptics.
Actually, I had the dubious honor of keeping Phil Klass up till 3 o'clock in the morning, when he took great pride in the fact that no one keeps him up past midnight talking about UFOs.
Not even me. Cliff, these retrieval sites were scattered where? All over the United States?
All over the United States, and also in Vietnam one, and also in Europe I was involved in too.
I want you to look at, as we wrap this up, look at the audience, look at all these people, all of them here to see you. What last words do you have for them if you never see them again? What message do you want them to take?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, you can choose to believe or disbelieve what I've said. I know what I'm talking about to be the truth. And I'm doing it not for me. I'm not doing it for... I'm scared to death being up here. I'm telling you that right now. I mean, it bothers me because the whole situation is I'm going to catch flack from being here. But you know, that don't bother me. What it makes it all worthwhile, what makes me feel good, is that it is my prayer to God that I have helped people who have had similar experiences and who didn't know how to turn, that they heard me talk, so they will be able to accept what happened to them, and they can say, you know what, I had an experience, a very unique experience. Now I want to share it. Whether they share it or not, that's up to them. But you know what? The more we start talking about the experiences we've had, the more people are going to have to start listening and saying, wait a minute, what if these people are telling the truth? You don't have to believe me. But I lived what I've told you I've lived. They are my experiences. And I will share them for the world, not for my sake, but for the sake of others who had similar experiences and didn't know what to do about them.
Good morning, everybody. And good morning, Clifford. It's an honor to get a chance to interview you. And just to let you know, we probably have 100 questions. So you probably have to talk as fast as I do to get through.
Well, be careful. They couldn't find the real Clifford Stone, so they sent me in. I'm the droid.
So that story's true then. First, I want to ask you about your background. Can you just go through your military record? You came in, you go out. Like, what's the dates we're talking here?
I went into the military on July the 8th, 1969. I went ahead and retired after a long fight for them to let me go ahead and retire in January of 1990. I spent 22 and a half years in the military. They initially found me as being medically rejected from military service. I really wanted to go and serve in the military, but what happened, they went ahead and said I was medically rejected and I couldn't get in. I wanted to go into the Air Force because my brother is in the Air Force. Well, as fate would have it, when I graduated and went back home to my hometown, I got a letter from the draft board said, "Greetings and salutations from your friends and neighbors." They wanted me to go back for a reevaluation there at the Ashland, what we call the Ashland AFI station, which is the Armed Forces Examination Station. There they went ahead, gave me my written tests and everything all over again. I passed those with flying colors, but I still had problems with medical. There was a person that was a colonel that was visiting from Walter Reed Hospital. He told the captain that was doing the medical examinations there, go ahead, take his family to Cannon Park, which is a amusement park that's in Huntington, West Virginia at the time, and that he would finish up the rest of the medicals. When I got in there, he said, "Well, you really want in?" I said, "Yes, sir, I really want in." He says, "Okay." He says, "Listen, all I can do is get you into the Army and get you in as a clerk." Well, hey, I wanted to do something in the military. I wanted to go in under what they called the Warrant Officers Aviation Flight Program. Well, I can't do that because that requires a flight physical. If I get a flight physical, then I'm back out again. So I'm stuck. But I wanted to get in. I figured, okay, I can do things after I get in there. And I went ahead. I enlisted. Was signed up for being a clerk typist. I'm on my way to the Army. Go to AIT. Everything goes good. Then, on the first time I had exposure to some officers having training in UFO recoveries there at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, not knowing really what was going on, I went through intensified debriefing as to what did you see, what did you see. I eventually went ahead, was returned to my unit after 4 nights and 5 days of that intensified debriefing. They went ahead and told me, called me down to my first sergeant's office, which first sergeant wasn't there. There were the 2 men, which I always called my terrorists, that did the intensified debriefing, said, "Okay, here's the situation. You have 1 or 2 choices. You can join us and help us go ahead and get the truth out there." And in the end of 1969, it's coming out. You know, steps are already on the way. Of course, they're talking about the Condon Committee report. And I said, well, you know, that'd be great, and I'd really like to be a part of it. You know, let me think about it. I said, oh, okay. You know, come back Monday, let us know if you want to re-enlist or not. Well, by this time, other things had happened in my life in the military, and I wasn't real sure I wanted to make a career of it. So I says, well, let me think, because one of the catches to it, I had to re-enlist for 3 more years. Then they went ahead and told me that you have 1 or 2 choices. Either go ahead and join us, or we have to court-martial you. And I'm thinking, court-martial, what did I do? They go ahead and say, oh, well, you know, you enlisted in the Air Force, and you wasted all this taxpayers' money taking the training in the Army and being in the Army. So, you know, we can't just let you go and walk among the people in the streets. You violated the law. We got a war going on, even though it's undeclared. And you were supposed to be in the Air Force, and you're here in the United States Army. You should have understood that. If you see my first DD Form 4, which is the enlistment contract, you'll see I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. Needless to say, on Monday I went back and I re-enlisted, at which time they administratively changed that DD Form 4, reflecting that I was in the Army. There's a much more story, but that's in the book also, of the involvement of how I got there. But from there on in, anytime they had a UFO situation and I was assigned close by, I would be called into it.
Okay, now one thing I always wondered about you is you leave the Army and you end up in Roswell. Do you know there's a crash in Roswell? Why did you end up living in Roswell?
Oh, I knew there was a crash in Roswell, but I wasn't putting the 2 and 2 together. I went ahead and I was at Keesler Air Force Base, and I was the Army Detachment Administrative Non-Commissioned Officer. And it was for the TSOC course. By the way, the officers who went to the TSOC course, they were actually the same people, after it was a 9-month course, in the 9th month they were sent for a week in Washington, and the NSA had their pick of those people. And I'm not going to tell you that there at Keesler, at the 33rd and 80th Training Squadron, they also learned how to do retrieval of space objects that have fallen to Earth. I can't tell you that, so remember, I can't tell you that right there. But I was there, and I got there after I got back from Germany, and they wanted volunteers to go ahead and go to the Multinational Observers Course in Sinai. Well, I thought, okay, I'm getting closer. I'm going to have to go back overseas anyhow. So I put in for it. I got a call from the Pentagon saying, oh, you haven't been back in the States long enough. Huh? I know people was in ADA. They got back. They were less than a year, and they were sent back to Korea. So I figured, okay, you know, I've been here over 2 years. You guys are eventually going to send me there. Oh, no. We are going to go ahead and reassign you in the U.S. By the way, you're going to Roswell Air Force, or you're going to Roswell. So I go ahead and think, Roswell, okay. What's at Roswell? We don't know. Okay, you're sending me to Roswell, and you don't know what I'm going to be doing there. And they couldn't tell me what I was going to be doing there. Now, the Air Force personnel that I was working with, they came and said, well, you know, they used to have an old air base there. They used to have what they called Walker Air Force Base, but in March of 1967, it closed down because, you know, the city had the wrong politics. I said, oh? And I said, then what else is? We don't know. Well, most of the time when you get an ROTC assignment, the professor of military science, which is normally a field grade officer, active duty field grade officer, he has a choice of the personnel he wants. So they sent him 4 or 5 candidates. Well, the poor PMS that was there, he didn't have a choice. I was coming, end of discussion. And the other thing that had been hard pressed, after you make E6, you're supposed to have a full-length photograph in your official military files. It's not a choice. It's a requirement by regulation. I took photographs, but guess what, folks? None of those photographs ever made it to my 201 file. There were a lot of things that were left out of my 201 file that he wouldn't even know about. And my involvement and interest in UFOs, that definitely wasn't going to be made part of my military record. When I got there, it wasn't too awful long. I was contacted by an individual that somehow, some way knew of my interest in UFOs. And actually, one of the first books that they wanted me to take a look at was the book entitled The Roswell Crash by Bill Moore. Well, I wasn't going to go out and buy it. I didn't really want to be involved in the UFOs. I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is the place. This is where they actually had the crash. I remember that we had discussions about this. But that was in 47. What's going on now? Well, what was going on now was that now they were about to go ahead and start talking about the crash in 47. And if you're ever involved in a recovery of a UFO, and then you were told you can't talk about it, then if you're used as a scapegoat, as Major Marcel was, he had to sit out there with the debris of a weather balloon that he knew full well that it was a weather balloon, and hold it up. And if you see the pictures, please note he's not smiling. Boy, it joke's on me. I went out there and I thought we had strange material, and it was nothing more than a weather balloon. He knew better than that. And he thought, why are these people crucifying me like this? Well, he was angry, but no one listened to him. No one listened to Jesse Marcel until Stanton Friedman talked to him and ran into him quite by accident because he was giving a radio interview at the location where Marcel lived. Marcel was more than happy to tell him the story.
Okay, so the story. Let's go to your story. A lot of people think they think about crashes. You were involved in 12, correct? So let's go through one crash. What happens? You get a phone call. Can you go step by step as to
what happens? When there was an incident that I was going to be called into, I would wind up getting a visit or a call. If I, forgive me, this is strong. I try to avoid it. Okay. But I'd get a call, or I'd have them come get me at the door. And I don't care what you're doing. You go. Bottom line, you have, nothing more to do. You go. I'd get a call, or I would go ahead and get a tap at the door, and the code word would be code word Tabasco. The general sends his regards. We had what we called a BA-50 bag, and there's a reason they called it a BA-50 bag. That's what the Air Force called their equipment that they would take with them. I was Army, but it was still the BA-50 bag. Well, I'd grab my BA-50 bag, and I would normally have a vehicle pick me up. They'd take us to a staging area, and from the staging area, we'd go from there.
So how many people are in this staging area? So this is all a different military there gathered?
Well, you would have selected individuals there, and it would probably be anywhere from 20 to 30 people. And I'd never been in any situation where there were more than 30 people. But you'd have two teams, an A team and a B team. The A team had to arrive within 2 hours of
You're on the A team? Are you on the A team?
I could be on the A team or B team, because both of them were made of the same type of people. Now, you might think, okay, 30, 60 people, what if they needed more? They could draw on the resources of the nearest military installation for any additional military personnel that they needed. They wouldn't necessarily brief those personnel when they went in, but when they left, they would go ahead and debrief them. And I'm sure all of you have heard about people saying that they had to sign non-disclosure agreements. Well, they did. And most people in the military will tell you, well, that right there is a standard military form if you had a security clearance. And you do not have to say that, you never signed, because that's not classified. Not true. When it came to UFOs, just like with people who were involved in SCI programs, the document, the mere existence of that document is classified within itself, even before it's filled out. For example, for Talent Kehoe within the National Reconnaissance Organization, the non-disclosure agreement, before anything else was put onto it, was classified secret. And once it was filled out, it could go top secret with as many as 11 code words after it. When that happened, you wasn't supposed to talk about anything that you were exposed to thereafter. And you know what was really weird? You didn't know what you were going to be exposed to, but you agreed to be exposed to it by signing that form. And with the UFO situation, it's the same thing. Within a compartment, was a sensitive compartmented information program, or special access program, a lot of people think, well, if you're cleared for, say, Blue Sky, okay, and that's the code word for a special access program, or sensitive compartmented information, well, you're cleared for all of that. No, you're not. Within those two things, SAPS or SCI, you have levels of information that you're privy to, and they'll tell you, well, unless you're doing certain things, those things that you're doing that you have a specific need to know, that's all you're going to have exposure to.
Okay, so you've got the need to know. So you arrive at a marshalling area, and then what do they fly you in to a helicopter? You into the site?
It depends on what they need for you to go in there. They need to fly you in. They flew us in. They flew us all the way from, in one incident, all the way from Virginia, saying we were going on an FTX in Florida. When we landed there at Oakland Air Terminal, we knew we wasn't going to Florida. Later on, we flew into an area, and when we looked down, we saw all these fires down below. And, of course, we were wondering where we were going. Well, we wasn't being told where we were going. We were told to go ahead and take off our name tags, our affiliation with any type of military organization, take off our patches, take off our combat patches, take off our unit patches, put our wallets and anything personal we had, up to and including our dog tags, into a little plastic bag they gave us. They had a little piece of tape. We wrote our name on it. And that stayed on the plane. A commercial airliner. It stayed there. When we landed, we were immediately taken from where we landed over to, I think it was 2 helicopters that we were using on this one. Got on the helicopters and they flew us to our location. And to the best of my recollection, it took about 45 minutes for us to get there.
Okay, are people talking among themselves in the helicopters to what's going to happen?
No, they didn't want you to talk, period. When we landed, one guy says, you know, I'll kiss your hindsight if this is in Oakland. Well, I didn't know. I'd never been to Oakland. But the guy that I always knew as the colonel who was in charge of these operations I was involved in, he pulled his .45 out and he says, the next person that opens their mouth, I swear to God, I will shoot. So...
That's serious.
Very simple. It was very quiet from there on in. We had one MP that we were close to, and I asked him, you're a military policeman, can you do it? Shut up, Stoney, shut up. So we went ahead, when we got there, we got out, and that was where we recovered a B-52 that went down. And there's a lot of stories, and several people have told several different...
Okay, but let's do a UFO one. So you get...
This actually did involve the UFOs.
Okay, so describe, you know what your job is? Like, what you're going to do, or just something?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be NBC. I'm supposed to go out there and take Geiger counter readings, things of this sort. But I already knew when we got there that, you know, it might be something like we are recovering something of a UFO. Now, remember, I've already seen our alien visitors, living and dead. I already had contact with the one that was going to follow me throughout my life, Corona. When we landed there and we went over to where the crash site was, I always thought a B-52 was much bigger than what we saw sitting there. But it was like the whole plane was picked up by a giant hand and put there at the bottom of the jungle.
This is Vietnam.
This is in Vietnam. We looked up, you know, none of the trees were destroyed like they should have been if it came in.
Yeah.
The B-52 wasn't in 100,000 pieces.
Okay.
So I'm going ahead. I remember I had my M16 up like this. I'm going around looking at the B-52 down there. We get to the back. When I get to the back, there are these little, typical gray guys.
And you see them? Does everybody see these grays?
I'm the first one to see them.
Okay, but does everybody else?
Eventually, everyone else gets to go ahead and have the privilege of seeing them too. But I go around and I'm looking, and you know, I can't explain why I did this, but I immediately brought my M16 down and started to shoot. But prior to me starting to shoot, the one that came out was looking me dead in the eye. I'm looking at him in shock. And I didn't even know how he even said it. It was, Clifford, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. And that was meant personally for me. In short, I wasn't supposed to be in the military. They did not mean for me to be in the military. But I brought the gun down, and I'm sorry, I better say weapon. In the military, you don't never call your weapon a gun. But I brought my weapon down, I started firing. I'm backing off, and I'm yelling, VC, VC, VC. And as I back off, the other people see them, they start shooting. We start running back. Our visitors are following us, but you know what? Our bullets don't have any effect on them. And you hear where you hit them with the bullets, it knocks them down, they get back up, like in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I actually believe that something was happening to our bullets, that we were not hitting them at all, because they kept coming, not running after us, but walking. We went ahead, we had a staging area on the other side of this little stream. We crossed it, got to that staging area. We were wondering if the helicopters were going to come and pick us up. And of course, no, they weren't. If anything was going on, we were going to have to walk out of there. So we're wondering, okay, we're stuck here. But, you know, our visitors wasn't following us anymore. The guy always called the colonel, he says, Stone, do you know where we're at? I said, sir, I'll tell you this much, we're not in Kansas anymore. So he goes ahead and he says, okay, I need a volunteer to go back over there and see what's going on. Remember, those are our troops on that plane. Some of them may need help. Well, when we went back, all of them were dead, but not killed by our visitors. What brought that aircraft down, it was on a mission over North Vietnam and got hit. And now I know where we were. It was, in fact, Cambodia, a place known as Parrots Peak region. But no one was going to volunteer to go back there. And I went ahead and I got my M16 without saying a word. I started to go back across the little, it was a river, but I mean it was only about halfway up my leg to my knee. And the colonel says, where are you going, Stoney? And I said, sir, I got to know what's going on over there. I got to know what's happening. He went ahead and asked me, he says, we need to send another person. I said, don't you get somebody else want to go? Have at it. And he turned around again and says, I need a volunteer. And I said, see, sir, you don't have a volunteer. But I need to know. I don't know why I need to know, but I need to know, so I started to go. But I don't want any of you people to think that those other guys that was with me were cowards. Because without any hesitation, without being asked, they grabbed their equipment, and I wasn't walking over there alone. Immediately behind me were these people, these soldiers, who knew that weapon they had, if we run into our visitors again, or whatever it was we ran into, those weapons wasn't going to be any good. But they were coming with me. The interesting thing, the guy I always called the colonel, who really knew what was going on, he said he had no choice but to join us. But he was standing there by himself on the other side of the little stream. And they followed us on in. We got back there. We cut the B-52 up into 5 sections. We cut the wings off. We cut the tail section off. So we had the wings, we had the tail section, we had the fuselage, and for some odd reason we cut the nose section off separately. We didn't have to do that, but we did. Then we had what was called CH-54 helicopters. These are Sire cranes. They're like aerial cranes that came in and picked up the pieces.
They moved on.
And we took the whole thing out.
What about saucers? Like say, let's go through a saucer crash where a craft is there. Can you describe how they get it out of there and maybe describe what's inside the craft? Have you ever been inside the craft and wandered around?
Inside the craft, you find that it's quite interesting because a lot of times, you know, like you've heard people say that space-time is different to them than what it is with us. We would come up on a craft maybe that's 30, 35 foot in diameter. When we go inside, we find it's very huge, and trying to figure out, okay, why the distortion and the apparent size of the craft on the inside.
Did you ever figure that out? I've heard that.
Well, we never have, but what our best guess is that you're actually dealing with a smaller craft within the three-dimensional reality that we're in. Very functional. It displaces space-time in its flight, so it doesn't have to be aerodynamically correct, but will displace space-time in the way it flies. That, therefore, going 10,000 miles an hour, stopping on a dime, going 10,000 miles an hour, making a right angle turn, those on the side don't even feel that because they're in a different space-time, and I hate using the word continuum because it sounds like it's something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's reality if you ever talk to anyone who's involved with quantum mechanics. It's a different space-time continuum inside the craft.
So you're in the craft, and what do you see inside the craft? Like, for people who've never...
When you go inside the craft, you wind up like when we'd go in, and not all of them, this is one that I'm talking about right now, we would have a big, I don't know, you could call them all auditorium right in the center of the craft, where it was just big and vacant. say maybe 30, 40, 50 foot high on the inside. Now remember, it's only 30, 35 foot on the outside. Well, we go in there and we're looking, we're wondering what's going on here. But, you know, you would have openings, we'll call them doorways, into little chambers. And some of these chambers would be having places where you would have, I'm going to say cots,